Hello, and welcome to another Digital Photo Mentor live stream on photo editing. It is Remembrance Day weekend here in Canada, so I'm wearing my poppy and remembrance of the fallen veterans and all veterans, and especially Indigenous veterans. So I have this lovely beaded poppy made by a friend of mine. So if you are in Canada, happy Remembrance Day weekend. And I believe it's Veterans Day in the US. Correct me if I'm wrong for those of you in America. Bienvenido, Earl. Welcome from Costa Rica. We've got lots of regulars here. I'm sorry about the time change, Karen. Yes. Are you in Saskatchewan or Arizona? I know that those places don't change their time. So, yes, that can be a little bit tricky. So, apologize for that one. This week, we're going to be doing blue hour images, as you can see on the screen. And there was a bit of confusion around what exactly is blue hour. So I'm going to show several of the images. I'm just waiting for everybody to kind of filter in. Because blue hour, just to give you a definition of blue hour, it is the time that we would know or call twilight. Okay, so it's the time after sunset, so after the sun has gone below the horizon, so there's no more orange, you won't see the sun, you won't see any of those colors, and the sky is blue. Okay, and it becomes this dark blue. Usually the lights are on in the city, so you get sort of that opposing color of the orange of the city and the blue of the sky. And the other time that blue hour happens is prior to sunrise. So just before sunrise, when the sky is still dark, it's starting to get light out, but the sun is not peaked over the horizon yet. That is blue hour. So if you're back in your office, if you could please share an article with everybody about taking blue hour photos, because there seemed to be a bit of confusion. I got quite a few sunset photos, which I will save for sunset, and some city photos as well. So, interesting. Rob has started a little map project as to where our viewers are from. Oh, very cool. So we're going to add a pin for you on the map as to where you're joining in. So definitely tell us in the chat where you're joining in from. We've got lots of regulars. I see Debbie, Stephanie, Mickey, Greg. Oh, welcome, Greg. I've got some of your images. I remember seeing your name. Deb in Alaska, Marguerite, Mike. I think I have some of yours as well, Mike. I'm not sure what your last name is, but I got a couple from a Mike. Lee, I got some of yours as well. So thank you, everybody, for sending your images. And if you are brand new here, this is the first time you are attending, put a number 1 in the chat now, just so that we know that how many people are here for the first time, so we can welcome you. Let's see. I'm going to dig into the images and see what we've got to work with this week. So when you submit your images, I always ask what software you're using, because I want to edit your images with the software that you use, if it's something that I have. I don't use On One, and I don't use Capture One. So if you're using those, unfortunately, I'm going to demonstrate probably with Lightroom or Luminar, but the tips I'm going to give and how I approach editing your image will be the same. Awesome. We've got quite a few new members, so I want to call them out and welcome them. Colin, welcome. Thanks for joining. Greg, Lee, and Jim. Awesome. Glad to have you here. Okay. So let me jump over to Lightroom. There we go. And I've got everything labeled here. Stephanie's here, right? I wanted to kind of start with this one because what happened here, Stephanie? Did you have some kind of a filter on or something? It looks like you're getting a really serious cutoff on the edges of this one here. You can see that it's super dark, and the camera's trying to make an exposure here. But if you've got a filter on, that could be causing that. The only thing that I can think about that would cause something like this. So it's not really fixable, unfortunately. You have to crop that one. Okay, so take a look at if you're using a super wide lens. Let me see what lens you've got here. 18 mil. Okay, so it's probably something to do with a filter on the front of your lens. Tamron lens, Canon EOS R. So I think that's a full frame, is it not? So check to make sure that you're not getting filter cut off. Okay. Okay. So the next thing I want to just mention is I'm going to come up here and just show what I was talking about in terms of some of the things that I got submitted that are not blue hour. So I'm going to be saving them. Okay. So if Marty's here, that's more of a sunset. So when you still have that orange glow in the sky, it's more of a sunset than it is a blue hour. You want to wait till that color's gone. Then we have blue hour. This is still a sunset. Okay. Or sunrise. I'm not sure what time of day that was taken. Even this one, because the sun is barely gone by, a little bit later is blue hour. Okay. Let's see. We've got some blue submissions for the subjects, which is cool. I said that was fine. This one is blue themed or blue overall. Okay. So I actually put this one into landscape, I think. So I'm going to save this one, Lee. And the same with Karen. And I know Karen had some confusion around blue and she sent some new images. This one as well, Greg, is still not blue hour. And it looks like this is Drumheller. I bet you I could tell you the point where you took this, right? Yeah, this is Drumheller for sure. Is that Orkney Point or where? I don't remember there being a building there. I think it's a different spot. So it looks like Drumheller. So if you can confirm where you took that. But these, you can see the light is still happening here. So not blue hour, right? I'm saving those for landscape. Also sunset, saving that for sunset. And then we did get quite a few that have blue hour. Okay. So if you're still seeing color in the sky like this, not quite blue hour. Okay. All right. So let me hop back over to the ones that I marked as blue hour. So I've got several in here that I've marked for Lightroom. So if you submitted your images and you'd like them edited in Lightroom, I marked them in blue. Is David here? Do we have a David? Let me see. Let's see if I can find one of our new attendees here. Jim, Lee, Greg, or Colin. Let me see. Let's see where there's Jim's. There's Colin's. Oh, Colin has a beautiful image. Colin has a beautiful image. I think there's Lee. Okay. So it looks like Lee had said Photoshop. So can I do yours in? I'm going to do. Let's take a look at Lee's. I want to do this one in Lightroom because you said you use Photoshop. But if you have the Adobe Suite, if you're not using Lightroom, when you open it in Adobe Camera Raw, this will be the same type of thing. So I'm going to start with this one because I want to work on one of our new attendees images today. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do when I come into the develop module, I'm just going to close this so I have a bit more real estate here, is to change the camera profile. And I've talked about this a lot. Let me just turn my pointer on. If you're curious about why I have this green thing, as you can see, it's a function of it's a little plugin I have for my computer. So it's not a part of Lightroom or Luminar. This is a little green pointer that I have just so that you can see where my mouse is. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is go in and change the camera profile because I want to see if I can get anything that it's closer to the color that I'm looking for, right? Landscape looks a little purple and contrasty. Portrait actually is a little purple as well. I almost never choose the ones that are vivid because I want to control the amount of saturation myself. Camera standard looks pretty good. They're all leaning a bit towards the purple side, if you notice that. So I'm going to choose camera standard. And then I'm just going to adjust the color from there. Okay. So one of the things you want to be aware of when you're doing photos like this at night, which is if you're doing a quote night photo, is you actually want blue hour. Okay. So this is the right time of day to do night photos, to be honest. So not at midnight. And I'll show you one that is taken later. The next thing I want to do is straighten it because you can see the horizon here is quite crooked. Okay. So I'm going to open the crop tool and then I'm just going to click auto because it should straighten it. And if it doesn't, I've got a few other options. Okay. So see what that did? that looks much better. And it also took care of that thing on the left there, right? So I'm just going to, I want to keep this light over here, keep that nice reflection. So that looks pretty good. If it didn't do a good job straightening it, the other option is you can just do it manually and sort of eyeball it when you grab the corner, or you can use this little ruler. Okay? And the ruler is great because you can put it on the horizon. So I'm clicking here on the left and then drag it over and put the line across the horizon like that. Okay, so same sort of crop, same result. Okay, so now I've got a camera profile and I've straightened the image. Okay, now I want to shift this color a little bit. So I'm gonna just try auto and see what it comes up with. Don't like that color either. I'm gonna try daylight next. Now daylight I know tends to add more magenta, but it actually is better than it and when it was shot, right? So I like the yellow level here, but I liked it with less magenta. So I'm just gonna stay with where it was shot at and dial this magenta down, okay? So that's the tint. And if I want more blue, I can dial it down even more here on the yellow. Okay, so now we're getting close to what I think is something that looks good. So I want these lights to look yellowy orange and the sky to be blue, and I want purple, right? Now you've got some dust spots up in the sky here, so we can use the clone, and I'm going to use the content aware brush. So this is the spot removal, and just draw over those. If you want to see your spots, right, I press T on the keyboard to get this toolbar. If you click this here, any other spots that you have will show up. So I'm looking for ones in the sky that I might not be able to see, okay? That's just a little helpful tool. Turn it off. There we go. Try not to sneeze. Rob wants to get me a button that I can push when I'm sneezing to mute myself. Okay, we've got another new person. Al, welcome from Calgary. Awesome. Okay, so now I've got it straightened. The color is better. Now I want to work on exposure. So I'm just going to do a shift, double click on the blacks and the whites. Okay, now it brought the white slider down, and it's trying to correct for anything that's clipping, right? In this case, I'm going to leave it at 0 because the highlights themselves are clipping, which is fine. They're actually light sources, right? So your light sources like the sun, it's okay if those are clipping, okay? Because if you try to bring them down, sometimes you start to get them looking muddy, okay? So I want to keep a nice highlight. So I'm actually going to clip them a little bit, like so. I'll fix this stuff in the water in a moment, okay? Because I don't want that too bright. These are too bright. I'm going to give it a little bit of clarity, but I'm not going to do too much overall. And the same with texture because this was taken at a nice low ISO. But if we do a lot of texture, right, you can see that it does bring out the grain a little bit. Okay, so keeping the texture off of the sky, I'm going to do that a different way when I add some texture. Now you notice that the histogram, everything is bunched up way over here on the left, meaning it's really dark. Okay, so the left side of your histogram is black. So I'm going to brighten it overall a little bit, pulling from the exposure slider, which is midtones. Okay, I talked about this last week. You can also put your mouse over the graph and literally just grab it here, like so, like that. And now I think, you see the sky is brighter in this corner. So I want to even that out a little bit. And I also want to fix these highlights. Okay, so now we're going to start to get into some local adjustments. So all of these are global adjustments. They affect the whole image. Okay. I'm going to go to color mixer first of all. And this is a new change that came with the latest Lightroom. They used to call it the HSL panel, and we still have HSL under the mixer side. We also have point color. Okay, so I'm going to try point color here on this part of the sky to see if I can isolate just this blue. Okay, so I'm going to click there, and then I'm going to visualize using this little checkbox here which part of the sky is being selected. So when you click this, it shows the part that's selected in color and everything else turns monochrome. Okay, so I want less of the saturated colors. So I'm just going to remove some of that, see how that's working. And I want less of the darker colors. So I just want that part of the sky. See how we're getting close there? Look at that. I've just got that corner of the sky now. Okay. Now I can start to make the adjustment. So that's just the selection part down here. Okay. Now I can darken it. Look at that. See that? I can even shift the color if it's not matching. Okay. Give it a bit more saturation. I still got too much selected over here. So let me bring that in a little tighter. There we go. That looks better. Look at that. Okay, so if I want to see what it's doing, see it's just affecting that corner. Okay. Look at that. I think that looks great. Okay. And while I'm here, I want to affect all of the blues. Okay. So I want to shift the blue tone a bit because I still feel like it's purple. So I'm going to just click on the middle of the sky and try and shift the colors. Okay. So that's more purple. So I'm clicking and holding. And I don't want to go too far, but I like that color a little better. Okay. There's still some purple in here. See that? See what that's doing? Right. I'm also going to shift the orange a little bit so it's less orange and a bit more yellow. Okay, so more orange, more yellow. So I've got more yellow and blue versus purple. Right. If I'm still getting purple, I can literally just dial the purple down. See how much purple there is in there? Or I can shift the purple a bit more, like that. So look at how powerful this tool is, right? It's really great. Okay, next, I want to deal with these highlights in the water that are too bright. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask, and I'm going to do that by just clicking on a graduated tool. So you can literally use a keyboard shortcut M, and it gives you this little crosshairs. So I'm just going to drag it up like that. Okay. So it's only going to affect the bottom part of the image. And now I'm going to bring the highlights down. Okay. And if I want to see where the clipping is, okay, let me turn this overlay off. You can see the little red indicators here. Now I'm using a lot of keyboard shortcuts. Rob, if you can please share the Lightroom keyboard shortcuts link, cheat sheet for the cheat sheet. You can download a PDF cheat sheet and follow along with the keyboard shortcuts. I have a cat on my desk. Okay, move your bum. There we go. You see the tail? Okay, move. Keep going. I have a cat. Come on, Munch. Move your bum. We have a cat problem on the desk. Okay, there we go. So now I can see that I've got these highlights clipping, and I'm going to bring it down just until, see that? I'm looking at the middle part here. Let me zoom in a little bit. So can you see the highlights clipping? Not clipping. And then it gets more color in that area. Okay. I still feel like it's too orange, but that's better. Okay. Now, if I want to darken the sky more or brighten up this part of the image, I can do that as well. Okay, so while I still have the bottom selected, I can brighten the shadows a little bit. And notice if I add black, right, it not only darkens the blacks, but it darkens everything and it intensifies the colors. Okay, so be very careful with black, and also notice I didn't touch the vibrance and saturation sliders. Everything is done with these sliders up here. And if you want more color, black. Okay? So less black, we get a little softer image. More black, we get a darker, intense image. Okay? So I kind of like the softer one, actually, like that. I still feel like it's orange and magenta. Take a little bit more out. Okay, and I still feel like I can go further with this point color. like so. So there's our before. Let me deal with this cat here. There's the before and after. Okay. I think that's a great image. I might decide to crop this little light out over here just because it's kind of drawing us away from the main subjects, which is like this lighthouse and these boats here. So I might come in and do a little bit more of a crop. Let's just keep the aspect ratio. Something like that. Okay. Let's see. Do we have? Yes, yes. She's trying to type while she was trying to just get in front of my. You saw the tail go by. I don't know if you saw that. Any other questions? Did you get the keyboard shortcuts, Rob? Yes, he did. Okay. Let's see what Stephanie said about her. It's using a crop sensor zoom on a full frame. I have to reduce the vignette to 0. Yeah, you shouldn't even be using that lens on there, to be honest, because it doesn't have what's called the covering power. Okay, so the circle of light that lens produces. Let me just go back to that image of Stephanie's. The circle of light that it produces is not large enough to cover the sensor. So that's why you're getting that, right? Reduce the vignette to 0. Can you get it corrected in Lightroom in here? I don't know that it's going to work because I can try it. Let's have a look. I'm just going to go off the camera for a moment while I deal with my nose and my cat. So I'm going to keep going here. So I'm just keep watching me. Aha, look at that. She was right. So I went into the lens corrections. Taught me something, Stephanie. However, I still would recommend not using that lens on that camera body, or if there's a way to switch it to shooting in a crop sensor mode, then I would do that, because it's not a lens that's designed for that camera. But you see that she said bring the vignetting down to 0, and it just fixed those corners. Right? I would end up cropping this anyways. Let's just see if we can do this image. Okay, so she's got the Lightroom for this one. So let's just do this one while we're here. All right, so I would crop this one. My mouse is not working right. There we go. Into more of a panorama anyways. So I'm going to go with a custom cropping and just come in something like this. Okay. It's a little bit underexposed, and if we look at the histogram, we can see everything is sort of pushed over there, right? Let's see if it's crooked as well. A little bit crooked. So we straightened it a little bit, and I'm just going to do a little bit brighter on the white. Got lots of black, and bring the exposure up just a little bit. Something like that. Right? But we can see if this one will benefit from a new profile as well. I find that the standard or the neutral ones actually usually work pretty good. They're standard. Okay, and this one is what kind of file? Is a Canon, so CR3. So right, Canon. I looked that up already. Right, so honestly, I wouldn't do a lot to this one other than just fix the corners like that. And it's a little underexposed in this area. This is blue hour is often something where you need to do some bracketing, because if I bring the exposure up, you can see that there's information there, right? But this is like 2-3 stops brighter. So this is a great time to do bracketing and HDR this time of day, because then if you want to pick up all this detail that's down in here and all the detail in the bright areas, a bracketed set of images would do a better job on that. Right? Aha! I taught you that several months ago. Well, I didn't know it applied to lens cutoff like that. So, well, I'm glad that I gave you a tip and taught myself something in the process. Okay, let's see. Where's the other one that I just edited? I'm just marking these as done. So let's take a look at some in Luminar because Colin has this fantastic image that he sent. Right. So I'm going to hop over to Luminar and get over to my set of images here. And let me find that one. So I can't tell you what it is, but you can probably guess if you've seen all the announcements from Skylum recently. But I have a new video coming out about that, a new thing tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, look for a new Luminar Neo video. Okay. All right. So this is Colin's image, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm just going to go back to Lightroom because it's easier to see the metadata here. So he was taking this at 25 seconds, f2.8, and ISO 3200, which is what you need to capture the Milky Way. So great job, great framing. Everything about this is great. Your exposure is fantastic. So I'm guessing you like to know how to bring that Milky Way out, right? And things like this. So this is a really great long exposure. We've got develop raw. So you always want to start with develop raw, and the camera profiles you will find here. So let's just see what any of them do. So there's the Adobe standard. Okay, again, I try to avoid the vivid. Portrait gives us more detail in the foreground, so that's not bad. Right? This one gives a little more pink in the sky, which in this case, I don't mind. Let's go, I'm going to go neutral, I think. Okay, because the Milky Way does have a little bit of pink tinge to it, and I kind of like that color, right? Now I'm going to lift the shadows, but I'm also going to open this curves here because when I'm looking at on the histogram, you can see there's data missing on the right hand side, which is the light tones and white in your image. So I want to make sure that I've got some good white. Okay, so in here under the curves panel, this is develop raw. You've got the same histogram. Okay, so by tucking it over and turning on the clipping warnings, which is J. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see that the stars themselves are starting to clip, but that's okay. I want them to be nice and bright, right? So when they're back here, this will bring your stars out. So bringing up this whites, right, will bring out your stars more. Okay, so the white. And there's no blacks clipping, so I do want to make sure that I have the black clipping a little bit. Let's go somewhere in that range here. Okay. So a little bit down in the foreground. Okay. So just those two changes or three changes, right? The camera neutral profile and adjusting these two things. You see the difference? A lot more color punch immediately, right? If anything, it might be a little bit too blue, right? A little bit too punchy. And I'm going to bring the shadows up a little bit, which will bring us some detail down here. It looks like there's something right down here in the foreground. I can't tell what it is, but I might crop that out. Okay, so I got a little bit too much foreground. So I'm finding this balance between adding some blacks. Okay, I want to clip the blacks a little bit, like so, and keeping the shadows having some detail. Okay. Now remember, exposure is your midtones. Okay, so see how that affects the majority of the image. Okay, so if I bring the midtones down a little bit but keep the highlights bright, you'll get that. See how that affects that Milky Way. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so before, after. See how it's coming out more now? Okay, so that's adding that punch with the whites. So the next thing, I'm just going to check off these boxes down here for auto fringe and chromatic aberration. I didn't see any chromatic aberration, but let's just have a look. There was an example last week that we had lots of fringe. Sorry about that, hitting the microphone. I've got a new microphone arm, so it is closer to me, so you should be able to hear me better. But I don't see any chromatic aberration here. I'll just do the defringe, and I might do a tiny bit of noise reduction here, and then we'll do the denoise using the extension. Okay, so that looks good. Let's close develop raw. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is crop it. Okay, and I want to go off. Let's see what Luminar thinks is a good crop. So I'll just do composition AI. And I want to have the tree off-centered. Actually, that's pretty good because now we've got the tree off-centered and the Milky Way coming in. I might give it a little more space than that, like that. I think that's a good composition right there. Okay, and I see there was a few questions in here. If you do bracketing, will you accept the composite picture in RAW? I would prefer to have all of the brackets, Diane. So if you do, say, 4 brackets, you'll just have to do the form twice because you can submit 2 pictures each time. So just submit 2 the first time and 2 the next time. So I don't want the merged one. I want the original RAW files, please. Totally forgot about squishing the curve. Squishing it. Yeah, well, you're not actually squishing it. You're expanding it. But yes, you can tuck in that edge there. Can we tell the shutter time? Yes, it was 25 seconds, Robert, on this one. Okay, so let's continue with this one. Now let's work on the color, right? Oh, I was going to go back into Develop Raw because I did say I wanted it a little bit less. Let's work on the color in here. It's a little bit overly blue. So if I bring this up a little bit, see how we get more sort of pink in the sky? I'm going to find some balance here like that. Because that one to me is neon blue. It's not the real color of the sky. I think the sky is more like that. Okay, somewhere in there. Okay, so like that. All right, now I'm going to go to Enhance AI, okay, because Enhance AI will bring up details, but you can also work on the sky. Okay, so see how it punches the sky and darkens it? I'm not sure it's doing such a great job here, but I'll bring it up a little bit, and maybe this one just a little bit, okay? Let's see. What else? I'm going to go into color because I want to add some color. So I do want to have a little bit more magenta in this Milky Way. So I want to see about adding some color or shifting that blue again. So we can shift, remember, shift the color using hue. And we can also paint it in. Okay, so if I just want some pink, where the Milky Way is, we can add these colors in here. You see how that's working? Right? I can even shift it. And then watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to mask it with a brush at a low opacity. My brush is about this big. And I'm just going to do a couple of swashes over the Milky Way. Okay, so I want to add that pink into there. See that? Just adding that little bit of pink. I think I got too much up here. So I don't want to get too much of it. Just a little bit around the white areas. So it's kind of subtle. Okay. It's just adding a little bit of pink there. And while I'm here, okay, I might actually darken those a bit as well. Okay, so see how that's darkening? And just bringing out a little bit more of that purple. Okay, so keep your edit subtle. Can you see that? If I zoom in a little bit. So it's this area in here. Those before and after. See how it's just adding a little bit of magenta. If I want a bit more, I can just come back in and paint a little bit more. So if I want it right in this area, okay, like that. Okay, let's see before. Oh, needs to catch up. Before and after. So just adding a little bit of magenta. Okay, so remember, you can paint in things that you want. So same thing here. I'd like to have more texture in the tree, so we can add some structure. Okay, and structure is going to bring those stars out too. So look at the Milky Way. Okay, so again, this one I'm going to paint where I want it as well. I find that boost sometimes does a nicer job than the actual structure. Okay, so I'm going to take this. Let's zoom in a little bit. And I could have copied the mask from the other one, right? I could still go back and do that, but I'm just going to paint it in again. So I'm going to go with a lower opacity because I just want it where I want it where I want it. It's like Harry Met Sally, right? I like it how I like it. Okay, so I'm just painting in a little more structure into the Milky Way and into this tree. Maybe a little bit down here as well. Let's go a little bit more. Okay, so where I see the red, where I'm masking, is where it's applying. Okay, if we look at, say, the before and after, I could probably paint a little bit more. Okay, so I'm building it in. Okay, so I'm not just doing one big wash at 100%. I'm painting in a little bit, looking at it, painting in a little bit more, okay, because I don't want to go too far. So I want to bring out some nice texture in here and structure. And when I'm done with this one, I am going to copy this mask, okay? So let's do the before and after again. So before, after, before, after. See how it's pulling out those details? I might even go even for a lot more in this area. Okay, so now I'm going to copy this mask. Did I copy it? Copy. And I'm going to do the same with details. Okay, so watch what happens if I do massive amounts of details. Okay, so you're bringing out all kinds of stuff. But check all of the sliders. For example, when you want to affect the sky and the stars, right, is it medium details or is it small? Okay, so small will actually accentuate grain and noise. And since we have an image that's 3200 ISO, we don't want to do that too much. So I'm going to keep small details a bit lower and go more on the medium details. Okay, as well as sharpening. And then I'm just going to paste in that same mask. Okay, so it's doing the same thing again in the same areas, sharpening the sky, sharpening the tree. So let's take a look at our before and after. So see how the detail is really coming out in both of the tree and the sky. Okay. I think I want to add a little vignette. I'm just going to go like this. Now remember, we cropped it. So when you do a vignette, they still have not fixed this. This is one of my pet peeves. When you crop something, it vignettes based on the original image size and orientation. So you've got to change that size. That actually looks pretty good right there. Maybe I'll move it over just a little bit. Okay. And then change my feather back up to 100. So 75. Okay. So before, after, before, after. So see how subtle these edits are? Okay. You're not going crazy, and we're just bringing out the detail. When you adjust the white on Luminar's curves tool, does it affect only the white areas? No, it affects everything. It's bringing in it's adjusting the curve, meaning it's pulling anything that is not pure white, meaning 356 of all the colors. So it has to do with the brightness levels. So it's affecting everything, pulling it over that way. Okay. If I go and do, I can show you something else on that, Marguerite, because there's another way to do that, right? So I use the hard line at the top of the mask to position it so I can see where it is. Okay, so if I go back into the vignette tool, right, I think you meant here, right? So I drag the feather down to 0 on purpose because now I can see the positioning of it. Okay, so I can see where it is, and I go extra dark, right? So I did that so I could position it and then just put the feather back up higher and adjust the brightness or darkness. Okay, so it's for positioning. And if we go back into develop, okay, I'm going to go in here and do a curve again, but I'll show you what happens if we do it different way. Okay, so that's the basic curve. If I go into blue, right, and do it here, right, it's affecting blues and it's adding blue into the highlights. Okay, so the key is you need to be on the main one. Okay, let's say I want some magenta into my highlights. Okay, so this is giving me green, right? So let's go the other way. Look at that. So remember how I wanted pink in the Milky Way? There we go. Look at that. And I can mask this as well because now this is a new iteration of develop. And I'm just going to mask it. I might actually just use that same mask. So it's pasted it in sort of this area. But look at that. There's some nice magenta, right? And I did that using that curve. So all I did was did a little adjustment on the green curve to add the opposite color into the highlights, right? If I find that my shadows are too yellow, right, I can shift now on the blue curve. Oh, sorry, we've masked it. Let me go to another one. See, now I forgot. Say I'd already masked to this area. I can't affect the rest of the image because it's masked. Okay, so now I'm on blue. If I want to affect the highlights and add yellow, I can do that. Okay, so if I decide, okay, it's too red down here, I want to add some cyan into the shadows. Okay, maybe a little bit like that. Or let's see. I'm just shifting the shadows. Okay, like that. And like that. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm trying to work on the foreground, okay? So I'm shifting the color of the foreground because it was too red. Okay, so I don't want to affect the sky as much, but actually it's not bad overall. So what I'm going to do is a mask AI because I want to affect everything except the sky, right? So I can use mask AI to select the sky and then we'll just switch it. Okay, so there we go. Sky. It should do a pretty good job of picking it. Give it a moment. That's not bad. What is it not doing? It's not picking up everything. No, it's not mountains. Okay, so let's try and go this way instead. Let's go natural ground. Okay, it's still not getting everything. We're getting close. There we go. I probably just need to go in and add that to the mask. I'll just paint this part in. There we go. Okay, so now it's only adjusting the color of the bottom part. Okay, and I did that with curves. Right? If you could show the video on curves, Rob, we need to make a new video, or I need to make a new video on curves using Luminar and Lightroom as well. She likes the magenta. Marguerite likes the magenta with the curves tool. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's take a look at the full before. Oops, I'm going to get over here. Before and after, right? So really bringing out that Milky Way. And of course, I might add one of my favorites. I might add a little mystical. Where is it? There it is. I might add a little mystical. See what that does? Oof, I like it. Look at that. Bring the saturation down just a little bit. Look at that. I like it. Right? You could also try a mood on this one, but fantastic image. Thank you for submitting that. Right? Great example of blue hour. Any other questions before I move on to the next one here? Actually, Rob, if you could find our article on photographing the Milky Way, that might be helpful for people that want to take these kinds of photos. And I see your note, Rob. Thank you. I did check the chat already. Okay, so now let's go back to Lightroom. Oh, there I go. Confusing my keyboard shortcuts again. I do that all the time. So fantastic image, Colin. Thank you for submitting that. Diane has a cool image here with some fire spinning, right? So we've done fire spinning on the beach like this, which is a great place to do it because it's safe. And you want to be careful not to, do it in a place where you can get something actually on fire. But I want to check one thing here. Looks like it's in focus. Yeah. So she's focused on the feet here. So that's perfect. Okay. So if you want to, let's do the same kind of thing and bring out this fire spinner. There we go. Okay. I might as well leave that there. So same process. I'm going to go through this one a little bit faster. So we've got camera profile. Check what they look like. I like standard. Landscape's a little too blue for me. But look what that does. Just changing that. Okay. I'm going to check the whites. I'm holding down the Alt Option key. And I don't see any clipping. So I'm going to just double click on both of those. Okay. So immediately we've got more contrast and more color. And we've not touched these sliders down here. Okay. I definitely want a vignette on here. That's interesting. So look at that. Medium vignette. Looks like it's a little bit crooked or darker on this side. Now, the neat thing about Luminar is I can position the vignette. When we're doing it in Lightroom, we don't have that option, right? So when we do the vignette, it's centered. So if you want an off-center vignette, you have to use a mask. So I'm going to use a radial gradient, and this part of the sky is brighter, the right part. So I'm going to do a radial gradient like that, and I need to invert it because I want to darken like that. So I want to make sure that more of this part of the sky is darker. Get this in a little bit tighter here, less feather, a little bit less feather. So I'm darkening the edges, but more on this side than that side. Can you see that? Right. So I'm going to go exposure. Look at how that's fixing that nicely. And the advantage of doing it this way, as opposed to with the vignette tool, is we can do more adjustments. Right. So I can adjust the blacks. I can adjust the exposure. See that? And then I might move it over a little bit because I got too much. There we go. Like so, and then I can also blur it if I want, right? So we can do minus clarity, minus texture. So you're actually blurring the edges. In this case, I don't want to, but it gives you more options than just a regular vignette, right? Right, now notice some of these fire arches here have sort of disappeared, right? They're not coming out so much. Okay, so again, we want to make sure that they come out, and I can do that a couple of different ways. They do come out when I do the highlights or the whites, but so does the rest of the image. Okay, let me see the exposure on this one. So this was 10 seconds at f11. So when you're doing fire spinning, Diane, what I would suggest is go with a slightly wider aperture, 5.6 or f8, because then you'll get more of the these sparks. Okay, it's the same with fireworks. Because they're only in the image for a small amount of time as they fly through the air, a smaller aperture like f11 doesn't capture them as well. So just open your aperture a little bit to get more fire spinning. I think we have an article on I think it's 3 lighting effects, Rob, the one that has the fire spinning tips. Okay, and there's definitely some safety things that you want to make sure you take care of when you're doing that. Okay, clarity does help to bring that out a little bit, okay, as does texture, so we can bring those up. But let's try this color mixer, okay? Let's see if I can get the oranges brighter. I'm going to try just the regular one, okay? So is it orange? Okay, it looks like there's some orange Is it yellow? Looks like there's some yellow, but I'm going to do more point color. So this is why I really like this new tool. I've seen actual videos on YouTube of people that said this wasn't a very good tool or a very good addition, but I think it's fantastic, right? I think it's fantastic because you can get so specific as to your selection. So I'm going to visualize, see how it's not picking up all of the orange, right? So I might need some that are a little darker. Expand that. Let's see if we go more this way. Yes. Okay. And let's expand it into more yellow. Okay. See how we picked up some orange there? Look at that. Still not getting all of it. Oh, that's better. That's better. We're getting closer. But we're still not picking up those little tiny ones because I think they're oh, that's better. There we go. They're just too small, right? So I want to try and give them a little more saturation, brighten it a little bit, and I'm going to go a little bit less orange. So let's see what that's doing. Okay. See how I did a really great selection on that? It's not picking up these areas as well because they're just so small. But it picked up this nicely at the bottom and the actual spin. Right. Another tip if you want to do an orb, if you're trying to do an orb, is you need the person who is spinning to actually rotate around a fulcrum spot, right? So you don't want them to spin it around, like don't just rotate. They have to move around in a little circle with as the spinning thing always spinning over the same spot. So put something on the ground so it's always spinning over the same spot and they go around it to make that kind of thing. Let me see if I have an image that shows that. So does that help, Diane? Okay, so we've really brought out the orange and the fire spinning. I might crop this one a little bit. Let's just see if it's straight. Looks pretty straight, but I think I'm just going to come in a little bit from the bottom. Okay? Don't need quite so much of the ground. Let me just see if I can find a fire spinning something for you here. Come on, my mouse is a little slow again. Let's search for fire. Okay, so I'm in collections and I'm just going to search for fire. Fire, fire, fire. Here we go. Okay, so fire spinning. This is a one that we did on the beach. Okay, so see how they show up a little better. Two things. You want to get the fire spinning against something dark, like you can see here. So I had him standing, that's Rob, standing against the silhouette of the hill. Because notice the sparks that fly here don't show up as well, right? Because they're against something light. Okay, so standing against something dark will show up better, right? And if we look at my exposure on here, come on. There we go. Oh, it is F11. So 5 seconds, F11, okay? Has to do with how fast they spin as well, but also because, like I said, it's across something dark, right? Let's see if my exposure is any different here. Okay, still F11. So I corrected myself. I made a liar of myself here, okay? So I was at F11, but I think the main key here is don't get them to spin too fast, and you need to be against something darker, okay? This is one that we did in our own city hall, which is crazy. But if you want an orb that looks like that, that's the thing I was telling you about. We have to have them go around it. Okay. This is Oregon. Yes. It could very well be Stephanie. Yeah, it's definitely Oregon. In this one, he's not turning in a circle. He's just spinning it over his head like this. But on the other one, Rob was not the one spinning. Okay, so this one, he was spinning it like up and down, the guy that was spinning. Okay. This one, he spun as he walked. Okay. This is a failed orb. Okay, so that's not a good, that's what happens when the person stands in one place and goes in a circle. You get an orb that looks like that, right? And there was another failed one here. Yeah, so that's a failed orb. Okay, again, they did not do a good job, and then I showed them how to do it. Okay, so when they are making sure that the bottom of the thing that's spinning always hits the same spot. Right, you can actually buy machines and things that will spin for you and get really into doing this kind of thing. Okay. Okay, so let's get back to where we were. Okay, we did that. We did that. Probably time for another Luminar one. Let me go back over to Luminar. Let's see what we can work on here. Jim's got a nice image. Al is here. He's got a nice image. And this one of Earl's as well. So let's see if we can do a few with the same kinds of settings. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this one is, whose image is this one? Gems. Okay, so let's see if we work on this one, and then we can apply the same settings to some other images. Okay, now the camera setting and the camera profile may be different because it's going to be based on the type of camera. Okay, Vivid actually works really well. Scenery works well too. I'm going to break my own rule here and actually maybe go with Vivid. Oh, I'm going to go with Scenery. So Scenery, I'm going to check my histogram and the curve, make sure I'm on the regular curve here. And I just want to have a little bit of black. So notice how when I bring the black down, watch the color. See, that's why I don't go vibrant, because when I do that, it's going to go too much, too vibrant, right? I don't even see a lot of stuff that I need to do here. Right? So there's not a lot to do. This is a really well exposed, well done image. Okay? Bring the highlights down maybe a little. That darkens the blues. Okay? Nice and rich. We can check the color. Again, it might be a little magenta. So bring that down a little bit. And if we want more blue hour, right, just bring this down a little bit. Right? And I think I just want to check the cropping on this one, okay, because it looks a little crooked. Let's just try the straighten horizon here. I'm not sure that's straight either. So I'm trying to look at this part in the background here, see if it's straight. Okay. Does it look straight? Maybe a little bit like that. And I'm also looking at the verticals of the building. So I think Luminar got it right. Okay, now I'm going to crop and take off some of this bottom again. I've talked about this in the cropping video that we did, the live we did a few weeks ago. If you could share a link to that one, Rob, because that was a really, really good one. We had lots of great stuff in there about how and why to crop. Right, so here, when you have a lot of foreground, the object or the subject feels really far away. Okay. Where did I get layers? I haven't used layers yet, Shelly, but I can if we want to use layers. Okay, so I'm just finishing cropping this one. There's a dust spot or a blob on the lens, so I'm going to use erase dust spots in the erase tool, and it should take care of that for me. I could have just done one spot and erased it, but if there's others and you have a dirty sensor, this is such a time saver. I found that Canon files or my Canon digital tended to be really noisy or dusty, and this is a lifesaver for Canon files. I don't know why Canon cameras like dust, but they seem to. Okay, so not a lot to actually do on this one, right? We punched up the color and darkened it a little bit and give it some black, and look at that. Okay, not much more to do. For getting layers as a general question, Shelly, if you want layers, let's say, for example, we wanted to put a texture on this one. Your layers are right over here. Okay, so to add a layer, you just click a plus, and then you have to know what image you want to add as a layer. Okay, actually, I might have a moon. Let me see if I have a moon, because I remember cutting the moon out. Aha, look at this. Okay, so I've got a moon. Let me say I'm going to add this moon, this full moon. Did I click it? Yep. Okay, it's thinking into this image. So I can put the moon up in here. There's another one I've got with a crescent moon, but It's thinking. Give it a second. Any questions while it's doing that? I've got the rainbow spinny wheel of death from Mac. Do we have time for a poll, Rob? What would we like to ask them? Yes, I will do that. I'm sorry. Do we have time for a poll? Okay, it doesn't want to add a layer. Maybe I got rid of that moon. I'll come back to that one in a moment. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to talk about these because David sent some great images as well. Interesting that this one is at, oh, that's Venice for sure. Interesting, these are at ISO 3200, so I'm guessing handheld on this one, so maybe you didn't have a tripod, but we can deal with removing things like the scaffolding, right? This is definitely Venice. I recognize that location. There we go. Okay, so the moon has now been added back in Luminar. So the moon has been added, and obviously it's too big, so I need to make it smaller. And the background hasn't been cut out of this one. Okay, so the background is black. However, we can use our blending mode. So let's make the moon smaller and put it kind of where we want it. And then when I change the blending mode to, what do you think I'm going to change it to? So the blending modes work in this layer that's on top, which is the moon. I want the lightest part to show, which is the moon. Okay, so if I choose lighten or screen, look at that. Screen does a great job, and the moon just appears and the black disappears. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So there's the moon. Shelly says you don't have that in Luminar. Do you have Luminar Neo, Shelly, or are you working with Luminar AI? Because Luminar AI, which is the older version, does not have layers. Okay, make sure you're using Luminar Neo, right? And you should be able to have layers. Okay, check this and let me know. Let me know what version you're using. Okay. Yeah, screen mode worked great on that one. Okay. And now, since I've got the moon up there, I can actually edit the moon, right? So I'm on the moon layer. I can add structure. Okay. So see how I'm just editing the moon. Okay. So look at this structure. Okay. I'm just editing the moon to add some more detail and structure. I could also colorize the moon, right? So if I want more of pink moon, right? I can literally just shift it this way. Actually, a better way would be to use the toning. Toning adds color to highlights or shadows. Okay, so if I add some color, we can make the moon a bit more yellow. Okay, see that? So it's not pure white. Or we can make a blue moon. Or we can make the blood red moon. Okay. Kind of like it just a little bit warmer like that. Not bad, right? I kind of like it. Now, the only other thing is I added this moon. Would the moon have a reflection in here? Maybe. So let's duplicate the moon layer. Okay, so now I have another version of the moon layer. I'm going to bring it straight down into here, okay, and just lessen it. And I'm going to stretch it a little bit, right? And then this one, I definitely want it sort of faded out. It should just be like a little highlight on the sand here, and it should also be blurry, right? So the new blur tool is great for that. So I can just add a Gaussian blur, right? And notice that the structure is still on there, so I can actually remove the structure, right? Because whatever I did on the previous layer is on here as well, right? So I can blur it. Let's do a motion blur, actually. Needs to be blurred more than that. Right? We get the idea. I think it should be way softer, but you have the idea, right? Just ever so slight. Needs to be way more blurry. Way more blurry. Let me see about... I can add a whole bunch of blur. We have multiple ways to add blur, right? There we go. Something like that. It's not perfect, but you have the idea. Yes, I can do a second blur edit. Oh, invert it. Ah, great, Robert. Thank you. So I added the moon, but I did not invert it. You're right. I just moved it down. So this one, I need to flip it upside down. Thank you. Yes, because when you do it reflecting, it should be like this. Thank you. Smart, 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 smart. And yes, I could do another blur edit, but I did some other tools. So we did blur, mystical, and glow, and it's kind of removed it. I'd like it to be more almost neon. Neon might work well on this one, because if I do an exterior glow or outer glow, let's just see if it'll even work, because I've got it masked, right? If I do an outer glow, there we go. Yeah, that makes it look blended more. See that? That looks a little better. There we go. Like so. Perfect. Right? To go back on here, something else you can do on these blue hour photos, so back to the original photo, whenever you have these great shots like this with city lights, you can see that there are some stars starting to happen there, right? If you want that to show up more, you just need to use magic light. Okay, so magic light is one of the extensions, right? And I didn't use the noiseless on the other one, which we can do as well. Okay, so I'm going to drag up magic light, and look what happens, right? It's picking up all of the stars. Now it adds them, oops, it adds them in the same color, because notice the stars there are red, right? I don't want stars in the sand, so I'm just going to delete those. You can just use the delete button and get rid of those. And I'm not sure I want all of these as well. This one here is a little too much. Okay, so I'm going to delete it off of that. Okay, because that's neon. I don't necessarily want a star there. I want to be able to read it. Okay, but if it's missed a few, right, we can literally just make a small brush and add them in. Right? And if you want some of them more intense than others, you just have to apply it twice. Okay, so I could apply it once for all of these, okay, and then a second time for the smaller ones. Okay, so let's try that. So I'm going to go back to delete. I'm going to delete all of those. Okay, so no stars there. And I want to do the stars here. Now we can adjust the number of beams. Right? 12 looks usually pretty good. Right? Don't necessarily want them so bright. You can adjust how sharp they are. Okay? You want sharp beams, wide beams, more of a glow in the middle. I wish I could add a color. That's my only sort of peeve with this tool. I wish I could add a color. Okay? All right, that looks good. See, we got our stars. Okay, so then if I add it a second time, right, when I drag it up, it's going to do its same selection again, but this time I'm going to delete all of those and the ones in the sand, and let's make sure I've got all of these, and I can make these stars smaller. So I'm literally just clicking on each of the lights one by one. I don't need that last one. Okay. Now I can have them less intense. right? Less clear. So they're a little bit more blurry. And maybe less beams as well. At least maybe 9 beams, 8 or 9 beams. Okay, so we can adjust how intense these are compared to the other ones. Like so. So there's our full before and after. Edward says, what key did I depress to duplicate the moon? D. That's on your Luminar Neo keyboard shortcuts. So to copy it, right, if you right click, duplicate layer is D, right? If I want to delete the moon, the second layer, it's delete. Okay. The magic light tool, Nancy. So she says she loves that tool. Do you mean the magic light? Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Especially on shots like this, like the nighttime photos. I wanted to go back to this one and talk about the noise reduction as well. Okay, so we have noise reduction in RAW, which we did a little bit of, and there's also the noiseless plugin or extension. Okay, so I'm going to run it on the middle. Did you ever look up your, okay, so Shelly, it says you have Neo. I'm not sure why you're not seeing the layers. Go and check what version you have installed, Shelly, because layers has been in Neo for quite some time. Are you opening an image as a plugin from something else, or are you opening it directly into Luminar Neo is the question. Okay, so now let's see what this is doing for us here. I don't even want to zoom into 200%. Let's see what it's doing for noiseless. Oh, that's doing a nice job. Can you see that in the sky? So there's the before and after. It's doing a nice job while still maintaining the stars. Some noiseless or denoise programs and software actually, they work by blurring anything that sort of looks like a speckle. Well, stars look like speckles, right? So a lot of times when you're dealing with a night sky like this and you run an anti-noise program, you end up losing your stars. But this is doing a really nice job set to middle, right? And you can adjust sharpness and so on as well. So I can even give it a little more sharpness to run the noise. I hope that helps. Okay. Karen, his abbreviation. So this one means away from keyboard, be right back. There you go. Yeah, I know. People don't use actual words anymore, right? Let's do another one in Lightroom. Okay, so I wanted to come back here and do this one. Marty, is Marty here? Because I know Marty had sent these and he had some questions because I wanted to look at what everybody's asking here as well. Let's see. Marty wanted to bring the blue hour photos, bring out the drama. That's what he said. Okay, so this was Marty's question here, right? So Marty had said, this is what he said. And this is Marty's image here. There's a copy, so I'm not sure why he sent me two, but that's Marty's image here. So we've got the actual moon, okay, in this one. And you can see the exposure settings here. Looks like a hand, doesn't it? The rock formation looks like this looks like a hand. There's the thumb and the fingers, and I don't know what maybe another finger, which is not so nice, right? Okay, so Marty wants to bring out the drama. I still want to address Shelly's question about Luminar Neo. So what you need to check, send me an email, Shelly, because go up here to About Neo. Right now, I'm on version 1.16 because I'm actually running a beta version of, like I said, the new thing I've already got access to. Okay, so tell me what version you have here. You should have 1.15 or 1.51 if you're on Windows. If you have something older, then you need to upgrade or update. You just need to update, right? If you're not sure if you're up to date, run in here and go check for updates, and it will tell you whether or not you're up to date. So try that, Shelly, right? And tell me what version you're on. Okay, so we're going to get to the bottom of this before we end today. Right? IB. Well, IB is something completely other, something else. All right, let's get back to Marty's image here. So we're going to go back to camera profiles, right? So starting here, okay, that definitely brings us more detail in the landscape, right? That's too dark and contrasty. Portrait brings out the landscape. See how contrasty vivid is? And it's hard to come back from that. Okay, so I don't mind this one or neutral. I'm back to neutral again, right? So I'm back to neutral. And the next thing I want to do is adjust the color. So it's very kind of orange and the sky is not super blue, right? So let's try auto. See, auto tries to correct the color and it goes the opposite way. Let's go daylight. Daylight often works really well for blue hour photos, minus a little bit of magenta. Okay, so that's usually my go-to. All right, now I want to check for highlights. So whites, hold the shift key, double click on whites, and then double click on blacks. That's a little farther than I wanted to go. I don't want to clip the moon. Okay, but that's improving. That's getting better. Still not crazy about this color though. It still kind of feels off. Let's bring the shadows up a little bit. Now, again, this is another situation where if you wanted detail in the land like this one's actually, you can get some detail out, not bad, but you want to bracket them, okay? So we want some clarity. Again, we don't want to do overall clarity because it does bad things to the sky and adds grain, and the same thing with texture. Okay, so it adds too much grain. And he's taking it at ISO 500, so it shouldn't be super grainy. Should be decent, right? I'm still not happy with that color. The color is still not what I'm looking for here. Let's try some other camera profiles. See, landscape does give us more blue, but it's an odd blue. I'm still not happy with that blue. I know modern number 7 is really great. Ooh, that's kind of interesting. That's interesting as well. So playing around with some of these other ones or one of these vintage or artistic ones might be kind of neat. But I'm still not happy with this color. This color is just not, it's not happening. It's not great. All right, let's see what we can do with the sky. Okay, so now we can go into color mixer, or I could just go into mask the sky. So I'm going to do mask on the sky, and then we can play around with the color. Okay, so you can see that the sky is selected. I'm going to bring it down again with highlights and shadows or dark blacks, but I'm going to keep the whites because I don't want to darken the moon too much. But I'm still not crazy about this color. Right, so we can work on curves, we can work on point color, right? So I can grab a point color and say, okay, I want to work on this blue, but what do I want to do with it, right? Let's visualize it. So we've got the sky. We've got most of the sky selected here. Let's do that. I want more saturation. Luminance, that's better. Okay, luminance. And let's shift it a little bit more this way. Yeah, I'm not really seeing what's happening here. I might try this entire image in Luminar because this color is just, I'm not crazy about it. What kind of file is this? ARW, I think, is that ARW, if I remember correctly, is that a Sony file? Oops. I'm looking for the camera type. Don't have Sony. Yeah, so Sony. I'm not happy with this color. Let me try this one in Luminar just for fun. I've got to go to all photos because I marked the ones for Luminar. Okay, so let me try this one, the copy. I just want to make sure I'm working on a different one. Okay, I'm going to work on this one in Luminar. Let's actually see if a preset works any decent on this one. Okay, so I'm going to go to presets. Let's see what it suggests. Easy landscapes. No. And let's come back to Shelly's. Ah, yes. You don't see the images that I'm seeing. Sorry, I thought you meant you don't see the tools that I'm seeing, Shelly. No, the images that you see there are ones that I have added into my custom layers. So you won't see the moon and so on. Those are things that I have added. So sorry, that was not clear to me on the question that you were asking. So thank you for Karen for answering that. Well done. All right, let's see if these are doing anything. That's not bad for a stream. Ooh, long exposure. Look at that. That's kind of nice. So that one's not bad. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if there's anything else that... There's a scenery, big city lights. Let's try scenery. There should be something for blue hour, to be honest. Maybe I need a blue hour preset for Luminar. None of these are really... Oh, volume. I think more volume might work well as soon as it loads. While you see this little thing on the preset, the circle thing, it means that it's loading a preset so that when I hover over it, it will give me a preview. Oh, no, we don't want to change the sky. No. But which one did I say? None of these are really doing anything drastically different. Monochrome, no. Okay, so I do have some in here that I have either purchased or gotten. Indigo hues. Okay, so these are blue, right? So let's see if these work. I've also got some LUTs that might work really well. Okay, so try some presets. That one's a little too far, but we might be able to work with that. Also that one. And also that one. That one's not bad either. Okay, so let's come with this one. Let's see if I apply this one. When you apply a preset, you've got this slider. You can scale it back. So that's kind of getting somewhere. And when you apply one preset and then click another, it overwrites it. Okay, so you have to decide which one you like, because you can't have part of one and part of another. It doesn't work that way. Orange glow, warm cool combo. I kind of like this one. Okay, so we're getting lots more punch in here. So I'm going to go with that one, dialed down. And then we can go in here into the regular tools. So this one I would actually pull into Luminar because I'm getting way better results right off the bat than I was from Lightroom. Okay. Watch out for this one. When you do the sky enhancer, you'll end up getting a halo around things like this if you take it too far. And I already see something that I want to correct here. So I'm going to go back down here to develop. So if you apply a preset and you didn't do develop raw, you can actually still get to it in your edit panel. It's underneath all the other edits, because what I want to do is I want to deal with this chromatic aberration. Okay, so there is chromatic aberration here, and it's that little red outline. Okay, I'm going to come in here so you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off. You see that purple outline here and this green on this side? So it's red and green. Look at that. Okay. Sometimes you need to do the defringe as well, and I think that works great. I'm going to add a little bit of sharpness while I'm in here, and a little bit of noise reduction while I'm in here. Right. And then once we turn on all of the other stuff, okay, it's going to put back the preset and the enhancements that we just did. Right. We definitely need a vignette on this one. Okay, so again, I drag the amount down and the feather down so I can see the positioning of it and the size and the shape, so I get it where I want it. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I put the feather back up and finally adjust the amount. So I just want it softer. This one I might crop a little bit. Let's see how Luminar suggests it. There's a lot of foreground again. So if we want to focus on the drama of the rocks, maybe something like this. Keep it sort of in the middle and the moon on this third here. This is if we want to keep the original aspect ratio, but you don't have to, right? If I want to make it more panoramic, we can. I do kind of like tighter on this side. Something like that. Just a little bit less foreground. Right? So let's see our before and after. I still think you could have more drama though. Okay, so I'm going to come back to develop again, and I'm going to do smart contrast. Look what that does. That does a nice job. We can also do curves, right, by checking the whites and the blacks. So we've got nothing clipping. Come in until you start to see the moon clipping. And we can add some blacks to get some blacks clipping. And that will add some color. Okay, so when we bring that color in with the black, black brings you more color automatically. Okay. Now, if I want to adjust the actual color tint, I would go back to develop raw. Okay, but we can still do it a little bit here if we want to tweak it a little bit. I'm not going to do that here. Keep the highlights. How are we looking? Better? I think it's picking up some noise in the sky. So we could run this through the noise list as well. Extension or plugin. I keep calling it a plugin or extension. Right? It's an extension. I keep calling it a plugin. Okay. Let's see. Rob posted a link to the keyboard shortcuts again. There's an updated one, Ed. So you just need to download it again. Yeah, there's a new one. Because I've been updating the keyboard shortcuts along the way, and you should be able to get the new one. If you can't find it, just email me and I'll send you a copy. Robert says, is there a way we could download the photos you're working on so we can work with them in our own style? No, unfortunately not, Robert, because these are not my images. Remember, they've been given to me by subscribers like yourself and given me permission to work on them, but I can't give them to you. Sorry. If you want to follow along on tutorials that I'm doing, I do that in both of my courses, the Lightroom and the Luminar course. You get my images to work on. So in those lessons, you do get the files that I'm working on. And whenever I do a tutorial where I'm using a stock image, you can go and download that image as well. And I usually provide a link to a collection for you. But in these ones, I cannot provide them for you. Okay, so noiseless. It's gone a little too far, I think. I'm going to bring it down a little bit because it's kind of losing some sharpness here, but I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Keep in mind we're at 200%. Okay, so noiseless has done a nice job. I think it does a really good job, actually. And I'm still not happy with the color of this one. So I'm going to go into add a LUT. And I discovered recently on my own sort of curiosity that if you want to add custom LUTs and have them show up here in folders like this, because these are the original ones, okay, so if you've got some LUTs that you want to add as previews as opposed to one by one by one, right, I did a little trick. So I added them into my custom folder. So I looked for one that had an odd name, right? I looked for, where was it? I'll have to make a video on how to do that because it was a bit of a convoluted process. You have to find where your custom packs are and add them in, right? So I added them in here so that they would show up like so. But I thought of immediately these teal and blue or teal and orange because that's literally what this image is about, right? Look at that. Teal and orange. Ooh, nice. I kind of like that one. Okay, so I'm going to dial it up to give some drama. This one's pretty red. Maybe let's take another look. The only problem with adding so many is you got lots of choices to kind of scroll through. I like that one a little better. See, that's giving it a lot more color. But notice it's brightened it as well. Okay, so if I add this one, I'm just going to go back a step or 2 steps and darken the image overall. It's a little tricky because I'm darkening it and then I'm brightening it. So I'm kind of guessing. I could do another develop on top of that, but I want it to apply to the darker image. So once it catches up. Okay. Ah, you have our course. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, unfortunately, like I said, I can't give you these particular images. I'm still not crazy about the color of that sky. It just, I don't know, it's just odd to me. And I don't know why. Let's try remove color cast, which is under the color tool. I still feel like the sky is like cyan and it's not blue. Let's see if we can shift the color. Okay, a little more like that, maybe. And let's darken it. Something like that. Yeah, it's an odd color, the sky. So before and after. So that's what I was able to do with Luminar, and I would probably add some mystical onto this one to finish it off, right? Like so. And we could also go in and add some structure and detail into the rocks and the foreground, just like I did before. Okay, so I would use the sky mask. Let's do that. So let's do some structure. And then AI mask. So if you know that it's like the foreground, which is everything except the sky, you can try mask AI on the sky and then just invert it. Okay, so let's do sky. And if it gets all of the sky this time, yes, it did. Okay, and we can just invert it, copy it. Now you can see that it's doing a nice job on there. Right, let me scale that back a little bit. Okay, then I can do the same with details. Okay, so medium details, a little bit of small details. And I don't want that on the sky, so paste it in. Okay, so the less you can sharpen the sky, the better. Okay, so when I zoom in, okay, you can see that before, it's just sharpening the rocks in the foreground. Okay. So there we go. So that was a much better edit, I think, than what we got out of Lightroom. And this one here, because this color is so odd, I might be tempted to do like a partial black and white, right? So I might convert it to black and white and then just add a little bit of saturation back, right? Like maybe 30% across the board kind of thing. And just have it more of a faded out. And that could be a LUT as well, a look. But when you have one that's got such odd color, I tend to want to minimize that, right? Now I'm using the wrong shortcut again. Okay, so I'm really not happy with what's coming out of Lightroom at all. So if you've got Luminar, which I believe Marty does, try it in both, okay? You could try a Lightroom preset as well. I don't have a lot of Lightroom presets, to be honest. I've got a few. Pete gave me a few. But I'm finding, well, that one's not bad. See, again, faded, right? Faded. So that one's not bad at all. If you're having a weird color, especially if you're shooting like an indoor image where you get sort of this weird yellow light, try black and white or faded type of look. Right? All right. let's come back to Lightroom because we've got actually some really great, I want to show you some of these blue hour images. So we've got walking on the path here. This one I would have exposed a little bit more for the people here. So if you wanted to get the people, right? So Stephanie, this one, I would give them a bit more exposure. And if you're shooting handheld, 1/10 of a second is really tricky on a 50mm lens. So sharpness, it's actually not bad, but it's focused back behind them here. So I would focus on the people, get them sharp, right? And let this kind of go and be the background, but give it a bit more exposure, right? If I just want to do a quick click on this one, and I'll show you what I mean by exposure, because again, you always want to consider what are you exposing for, right? So there's nothing wrong with this exposure in terms of, is it correct? You know, there's not a lot clipping, right? But if you want to see the people, it's a little under. Okay? So I would give it more something like that kind of exposure. Okay. The next one, okay, blue hour. Also, Stephanie, looks like blue hour over the Grand Canyon, I'm guessing, or some canyon. Okay, so you can definitely work on that. And this one I would leave that blue, but playing with this one in Luminar with one of those LUTs. If you want to use a LUT in Lightroom, you have to install it as a camera profile. Otherwise, you have to take it to Photoshop to use a LUT. Okay, so LUT is a lookup table. Right, we looked at these already. These great blue hour images of David's, and I'm just looking here. Okay, so it says he took it at 10 p.m. Okay, so I don't know if his clock was set to Venice time or not, but it says 10 p.m. Okay, Bill also in Italy. This is the Trevi Fountain, right? That is, oh, what is that? That is the Pantheon. I want to say Parthenon, but it's the Pantheon in Italy, in Rome. And this is a great shot. So I'd love to edit this one. I'm going to come back to this one in a moment because that's a great image. Really well done. Right? This one is definitely blue hour, Marguerite. Right? Also, blue hour, work on getting some subjects. The moon here is kind of tricky. So you've got the trees and the moon, but you need a subject for the eyes to land on as well. Right? I know Karen sent a few images that have blue in them. Ooh, Grand Canal, that's a cool bridge. That one we could do some neat things with as well. Right? This is one I wanted to show because this one is after blue hour. This is the one I talked about where it's too far, too late. Okay, so earlier is blue hour. This is past blue hour. We did that one already. And this one of Mike's, definitely blue hour. Now this one is cool because he's done a long exposure, 6 seconds in the middle of the road, and he's got some car trails. So that is really kind of, oh no, he's not in the middle of the road. Ha, you tricked me, Mike. It's not the middle of the road. I thought he had traffic going by on both sides, but this is a mirror in a window. Ha ha. Very clever, very clever. So that's a cool blue hour shot. Well done. Okay. That's a cool one from Earl. So we've got the carousel, right? And some blue hour here. So these are great. Nancy sent me one that's more just blue. And when you send Nancy, please remember to send JPEGs without your watermark or anything, and the original RAW file. Sorry, not the JPEGs, okay? Also blue hour needs a little bit more focus of something of interest in the picture, okay? This one is great. Lots of great reflections, and that's Al's edited version. So we could take a look at those as well. And same here. This one is after blue hour. So Terrence, you want to get out and photograph a little bit earlier. Yeah, this one says it's 8 p.m., but I don't know where. So depending on where you are, this is after blue hour. So it's a little bit too late. And John, if you're sending images, this is a JPEG that's been edited as well. And I can't really do anything with this one either. It's already edited and it's only 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. So please, if you're sending images, send the raw files, okay? Original, unedited, uncropped. Okay, so I want to come back here to this one because this is a really great image. The one of Venice as well. These are both great. And I want to try and really bring these out. So again, we're going to go a little bit quicker. So look at the exposure here. Okay, so it's really well exposed across the board. Okay, you've got some stuff on the right hand side and the left hand side. Okay, so it is definitely, is this not a raw file? Let me see. Oh, it is a raw file. Okay, so it's not recognizing the camera. I wonder if he's merged this as an HDR. Interesting. This could be a merged HDR because it'll come out as a DNG. So, Bill, if you are watching, is this a merged HDR? So I want to see if I can get a preset or one of these LUTs. Okay, so Modern 7, I like a lot. I use this one a lot. Look what it's doing for the building. It's giving these really nice yellow glow there. So I'm going to use that one. And when you get into choosing one that's not a camera profile, you can actually increase it or decrease it. Okay, so this one has a little too much contrast if I go too far. So I'm just going to dial it back to about 90. Okay, I want to bring the shadows up just a little bit, and I'm going to do the blacks, make sure I've got some clipping, check the whites. I'm holding down that Alt Option key. Remember, if the highlights are clipping where the light sources are, that's okay. Okay, now there's some scaffolding over here. Looks like under construction and a really bright light. So maybe they're doing something in there. But I also see some fringing. Okay, we can check the camera profiles and the lens correction. Make sure that we got chromatic aberration checked off and enable profile correction. Okay, so it says it's built in. Okay, so whatever camera he took this with, let's just see if I can get the metadata here. My mouse doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. Leica. Okay, so Leica. So the Leica profile was built in for the lens. Okay, so that's good. And let me go back here. All right, so far, just camera profile, a couple of small changes. And let's make sure we keep the highlights. Now I want to do some adjustments here to show you how to adjust the building distortion, right? So we can crop, but to do that, you want to do the transform, okay? So transform before you crop, because when you do transform, sometimes it will crop anyways. So what I'm talking about is how the buildings are coming together. It's called perspective distortion. So I'm just going to click auto and see what happens. You see that? Now we've lost the top here of this monolith. So I don't want to do that. And if I check the cropping, let me just undo. So I don't want to crop it, or I don't want it to do so much, right, that it's getting rid of the top. So I'm going to try some of the others. I'm going to try level. Okay, see, it straightened it. Okay, so level, and then vertical. Did a better job here. We barely have the top. Oops, that was a little too much cropping. We barely have the top, but bear with me. Let's go with this, okay? And oh, that's interesting. That's the before image, apparently, according to Lightroom. Nice and sharp, too. Great job on this image. Let me turn this off for a moment. So, see the difference? When I do this, we're losing a lot on the sides because it's stretching the sides out, and we're getting rid of some of that construction area and almost losing the top, but not quite. So we're going to fix that in a moment. All right, so I'm going to make sure I've got what I want. I don't see any other adjustments here. Honestly, this is really well done. Let me bring the shadows up just a tiny bit. We're going to give it a little bit of clarity. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some sharpness. I'm going to mask the sky and then invert it again because I want the buildings sharper. Okay, so there's the sky, and then just invert here. That's easy to do in Lightroom. And this is where I'm going to add more clarity and more texture. And that is only affecting this area. Okay, so see how that's interesting. Why is it giving me a before like that? I'm going to fix that. Okay, so there's the mask. Oops. There we go. Okay, so if we're getting a weird before and after, okay, what I'm going to do is do a complete reset on all the edits and then go over here into history. Okay, so then I'm going to right click the last history state, which is reset, and copy it to the before, meaning that's what it's going to show me for before. Okay. So now I'm just going to go back a step where I was. There we go. Now when I do before and after, we get the full before. So he's obviously done some editing here that came forward when he sent the DNG file to me. Okay, so he's already corrected the color. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of warmth back. So he's taken some of the warmth out because it was really yellow. Right? I'm going to add a little bit back. Okay? Because when you have blue hour, that's pretty neutral. But when you've got blue hour and you've got these opposing colors, the opposite colors, it actually makes it that much more interesting, I think. Okay, because you've got, they're called complementary colors, right? Blue and yellow. All right, I really, really like what's happening there. Now, the problem is we've got this guy in the foreground here with some wheelchair, and we've also missing part of the top of the sky, right? So, or top of the cross up here. I'm going to run this through noise. Okay, so noise reduction in Lightroom, if you run it through their new AI noise reduction, you will get a new DNG. Okay, so I'm going to do that just to see what kind of job it does. Okay. And there's not much to it. You literally just have to choose how much you want done. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Vic. Vic is here. I did have one of your images, Vic. I'm obviously not getting to everybody's blue images today, so we will have another blue hour. You'd get run over if you do that in the middle of the road. Well, I was thinking that there was like a center boulevard or a center, column or something in the middle, Mike. So you tricked me. Good one. Lightroom is having trouble with that. So you know what? I'm not going to muck with it because I don't want to spend too much time on that. But if you want to do the Lightroom noise reduction, this is the one here. And you literally just have to pick the amount. So I'm just going to use the regular noise reduction and do it a little bit here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Because what I want to do is I want to bring this into, oops. There we go. I want to bring this into Photoshop to try and deal with this top here. So we're going to right click it and we're going to do edit in, open as a smart object. Okay. So if you have the newest Photoshop, it does have the AI, the generative AI tools. Okay. And Luminar is adding more and more of those all the time as well. So if you have Luminar, you can do the same, or you will be able to do exactly what I'm going to do. So let's wait for it to open Photoshop. Any questions about anything about Blue Hour or any of the stuff that we've kind of talked about today? There's definitely some specific things you can do to your night photos. There's another video I'd like you to share, Rob, and that's the Luminar one about 2 settings to enhance your night photos. I think that was a good video as well. And Rob has mentioned in the chat, if you have not told us where you are from, please do so. And he's going to create a map of where everybody's from, which would be kind of cool. Okay, so I'm going to bring my layers. Where's my layers? Over here so you can see it. Because what I want to do is to use this new generative AI technology. Okay, so this little panel here, okay, you have to make sure you're in Photoshop 2024 to have this. You'll see this here if you make a selection. Okay, you're going to change it. So what I want to do is actually expand the canvas. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is canvas size, which is where I usually just do it a shortcut. Okay, so I'm going to extend the canvas size, so which is under image, canvas size. Okay, so right now it is 8368 by 5584 pixels. So I want to expand it up a little bit and maybe even to the left. So I'm going to make sure it goes from here, meaning it's going to add upper and left. And let's see how much wider. I don't want to make it too much wider. Let's go 8600 pixels. And you also have a limitation with Photoshop of, I believe it's 1054 pixels, something like that. And let's go 6000 pixels high. Okay, so we're going to go like that. So it's going to add to the canvas. Okay, so now we've got that. Okay. So now what I want to do is select each of the areas and have it fill it in. Now notice, of course, it's got to make this building. Okay, so I'm going to do the left side first. Let me just do, so I'm going to use the marquee. And when you do this, make sure that you have a little bit of the image as well, because it needs to know what to fill it in with. Okay, so I've got, oops, what did I do there? Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so I've got a little bit of the image selected. Now you see it says generative fill here. So all I have to do is enter a prompt, or if I just hit return, okay, you start to see the wheels turning, and now it's generating. It's going to generate something to fill it in. Robert, if you are on 1.15, that means that you are on Mac. The 1.15.1 is Windows only. There was a Windows small update that came out for them only. So if you have Mac, that's why. Okay, so now we've got some options. Oh, looks like I missed a bit at the bottom here. So on variations, it's under properties. Okay, if I go to the properties panel, you can see I've got some variations. So it even is filling in a car, some people. And I think that one's probably the best. So if I turn it off, that's what it looks like. I don't know if that's working or not. It can come in a little closer. Kind of looks like a half of a car there. That's kind of weird. Yeah, it's not doing a great job on the car, but we can fix it. Okay, so let's say I go with that one, and I obviously missed a spot down here. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily use the Generace again to do this, or sorry, Generace is Luminar. I wouldn't use the generative fill again. And with Photoshop, you have credits now. It's a credit system, so you only have X number of credits. I think it's, depending on the package you have, 250 or something. And every time you hit a request, that's one. Okay, so once you hit your maximum, you're out. So I wouldn't use generative to fill that. And that looks pretty good up here. So the clouds look good. I'm going to look at the clouds and the building a little closer. Yeah, I think I definitely like number 3 the best. So I'm going to go with number 3. Okay, so you see that it's added it as a new layer. Okay, and I'll come back to fill this little bottom part another time. So now I've got to do the top. Okay, so I want the same thing. So I've still got my marquee. I want to make sure I get a little bit of it. Okay, and I'm going to come all the way across, because then it's going to do a better job of filling it. You see it's got the cross there at the top. I just want to fill in some sky, and it should fill in the rest of the building on the right as well. Now, how realistic it looks, hard to say. But let's cross our fingers. And like I said, it uses credits. It's my understanding that I've asked Skylum, and theirs will not be using credits. So you don't have a limited number of things when you're using generative AI with Skylum. Okay, so here you can see the different buildings, right? It's trying to make something like, I think that's probably the best one. I don't mind that one, okay? So now we've got the sky above there, okay? So to solve that little part at the bottom that I missed, this little one down here, right? I would just do a new layer, okay? So now we're into Photoshop. So new layer, and then just use either the cloning tool or even a patch tool. So I can just draw a little box around there, drag up here. Oops. Oh, I need to sample all layers. Let's try that again. There we go. See how easy that was? I just needed to sample the layers below because this layer is empty, of course. So there's our new image, right? So now I just save it. Or if I want to fix this thing over here, we got the construction here, right? So let me just draw another box around here because I don't want this construction. I don't like the scaffolding. So I'm just going to get rid of it. Let's just see what it fills in. Now I could also enter a prompt, right? I could enter a prompt to say what to fill it in with. I could say umbrella, building, merge with surroundings, right? Let's see what I got for options here. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. It's not perfect, right? And again, I could go over here if I want to fix this part and do it one more time. I could literally just get rid of this guy here. I'm not happy with this light there either because this car looks kind of weird. So let's just see if we can fill it in with a building itself. We could also remove this guy in the wheelchair in the foreground too, but I might not use the generative. Okay, now we're sort of missing a doorway, right? But let me see if there's a better option. There we go. That looks realistic. All right. It's even got like some headlights there. So now I'm just going to do a save. So remember to do save, not save as. When you've gone to Photoshop from Lightroom, do save and then close. Don't do save as. Okay, so if you're doing save as, it makes another new file because you're already in a new file. So all you need to do is save it and then it will come back to Lightroom. Okay, so here we are back in Lightroom and it's going to pop in and show us the new image in a moment. It'll come into the same folder. Okay, now if it does not, or if it doesn't appear in Lightroom, sometimes what happens is you've got things sorted in Lightroom the wrong way. I think this is just still saving. Come on. What are you doing, Lightroom? What are you doing, Photoshop? Still saving. Okay. It's doing its thing. I can't make it bigger. There we go. Okay, so now it's closed. And you can see it did pop into Lightroom next to the original. Okay. If you've got things sorted, for example, by edit time, well, guess what? It may show up in another place, okay? Or let's see, let's do it. If I have it sorted this way, yeah, it's still there. I'm trying to get them, if you've got them sorted by some other thing, okay, that makes them different. So they may not show up together. Just change your sort to file name or something like that, okay, and then they will show up together. Also, if you're in a collection, it may not show up in the collection. Okay, so there's the original, and there's the finished image. So we just added some bits to the side and the top, like so. I think we're going to call it a day as well, Diane. We did not pick something for next week, Rob. Have we got a theme for next week? What are we doing? Yeah, don't save as. Well, sometimes you save as. Bridges, laundry. I bet you everybody has lots of pictures of doors. Why don't we do doors? We haven't done doors. Doors and windows? How about we do doors and windows next week? How many of you have door and window photos? Okay, now here's the other thing. We asked everybody to bring a friend this week, and if you did, that's awesome. Bring some more friends next week. Invite your camera clubs. All you need to do is give them the standard link, which is youtube.com/digitalphotomentorlive. I'm going to put that in the chat. Sorry, my live started playing on the other window here. Okay, so just bookmark that and give that to people and they can come attend. And if you want to submit your images, Rob will put a link for that in as well. So remember, raw files, please, unedited. There's been some controversy about photo contest winners using AI. Where is the line? Well, Maybe we can have a discussion on that. Maybe we can have one live where we literally just discuss it, or we can have a Zoom call. I've been considering doing something like that, Mike, where we literally just have a chat about it, because there's definitely a gray area. Yeah, for sure. And also even just sharing sharing images on social media, what's real. A friend of mine shared an image of a guy, a fisherman, that was a fantastic image with all these birds and everything flying around. And my first thought was, is it real? So, I'm questioning now, is it good photography, or is it AI? The 250 limit thing, I think it has to do with credits, Ed, and how the credit system works. Let me look this up. Adobe Photoshop AI credits. Okay, so I'm just Googling this for you. Frequently asked questions. Here we go. So this is how credits work. So if you have Photoshop and you're using the generative AI, there is a limit. Okay, otherwise they're going to start charging you extra if you use it more. Okay. Yes, Blue Hour was great. I apologize for not getting to your shots today, David. As you could see, we had lots of great submissions, but your Italy shots are fantastic, and we will definitely do Blue Hour again, and I will hold on to them. So thank you for submitting those. They are great. Yep. Any other questions? Oh, you want to see David's? Okay, yes. David's are great. He had the ones of the square. Do you want me to do one real quick? Okay. You're using Lightroom, so let's do one real quick. We're like way over time today, but David's here, so let's do his image. And let's fix that. Okay. So when I'm starting an image, I talked about coming to the camera profile first. Before I even do that, I have an idea of, okay, what do I want to do? What am I going to edit here? So my first thought is I definitely want to get rid of this crane, obviously. I'm probably going to crop out or remove these chairs on the right. I feel like I'm going to crop in a bit of the foreground. Right. And you can also do the upside down trick. Right. So if you haven't seen me do this one before, right. Oops. Look at the image upside down. And when you do so, no, I don't want to remove it. When you do so, it helps you to see where your eye is going to be drawn. Okay, so obviously it's going to go to the light posts, but it also goes to this sign here. So I think I want to tone the sign down and darken it, right? So that the eye doesn't go there. So the shortcut on that to put them upside down was Command square bracket. So now let's go into develop. Oops, I removed my sidebars. Forgot why I couldn't see my sidebars. And let's take a look at the options again. So same thing. We could go with camera. What kind of file is this? Nikon file. Okay, so Nikon file. Again, I usually find the neutral or the standard is a better place to start. Notice in Vivid, something that's happening, you can see there's an edge vignette, and that's something we're going to fix in the camera settings, the camera profile. Right? I kind of like natural or standard. I think I'm going to go with natural because I don't want this to get too dark. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is crop it so that I'm not working on an image that's got stuff in it that I want to get rid of anyways. Okay, so I'm going to crop in to get rid of the chairs and some of the foreground. And I think I want to come in a little bit on that side as well. So let's just come in to the heart of the matter, right about there. Okay, and now this light standard is nice off on the thirds. I straightened it and so on. Okay, let's check highlights. So the highlights are indeed clipping, which are the lights themselves. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit like so. Let's make sure we have some black. And notice how hazy it is. So the church itself, that's St. George's, is a little bit hazy. If you try and use clarity, it's not going to work. But if you do dehaze, anything that's sort of faded out like that, dehaze does a really nice job of bringing that back. Right? Or you might want to leave the haze. Okay? Kind of give it a little bit of mystery. I find it's a little purple, so let's get some of the magenta out. And it might be a little overly blue. I'm going to add a quick vignette. Okay. Now, the thing that I mentioned is these edges here. Actually, I'm going to come back and undo the vignette. The edges are a little dark, okay? And that's got to be under lens correction. So I'm going to activate that and see what that does. It's got a little bit of a vignette on the corners, and usually that has to do with the lens or if you've got a filter, okay? Like Stephanie had the filter before. So see how I can affect the edges here. I'm just going to make sure it's blended nice. So I'm making sure the corners aren't dark. Then I'm going to apply this vignette. Okay, so make sure your corners are even before you do this one. Let's get it in a little tighter. I want to come in nice and close. Like so. I've got the highlights up, so I'm not darkening the highlights so much. There we go. I want this darker even yet, so I'm going to do an edge gradient mask and just darken. Notice I use exposure and blacks. Now it's picked up a bit of color, so I'm just going to bring the saturation down there. Okay. This one would look fantastic with a LUT, I think, if we added that. I still feel like it should be more yellow, but it's okay. Oh, you know what that is? That is something projecting on the side of the church. That's what that is. And it's super, super bright. Okay, so I want to tone that down. And I'm just going to do a radial mask. So I'm going to make a new mask and just select this. Okay, I'm going to keep the feather down because I don't need, it doesn't have to be perfect. I just need to select this area like so. And then bring the highlights down. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I am seeing my mask. There we go. We'll feather it and then it solves that problem. Okay, see that? And if I want to give it a bit more color, I can just choose a blue here because I want it to blend in a little better with the background. Let's see if I get this one. Here's a little trick. If you click this and drag it up here, okay, so to get this eyedropper, so I can select a thing from here, I'm clicking on here and then dragging it up. So I want to get this same blue, like that. Okay, that looks good. And then when I bring the brightness down, it's solving the color as well. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. So see how that's toning that down? Giving it a lot more drama. Let's bring the shadows up a little bit. And we need to get rid of this thing. So I'm just going to use the spot healing and make sure I get a nice big brush. Get the whole thing, and it should just fill it right in. On stuff like this that's in the sky, it should be pretty easy for Lightroom to fix it. See, it's missed a bit right there. Now, the tricky part is I can't paint again there, right? So all I got to do, oh, there, I got it now. I just moved it, and it solved it. Perfect. I was going to say I'll paint another one down there and just move it. So there's our before and after. So I'm not doing a great deal here. I'm going to give it a little bit of clarity, a little bit of texture. And I still feel like I want to darken this foreground even more. And I'm going to come up higher with it. There we go. Like so. This one actually might be a neat opportunity to do a sky replacement. So if you are using Lightroom, you need to do that in Photoshop, or you need to take it over to Luminar. Okay, so we could do a sky replacement and put some stars in here, and that might be kind of cool. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave that with you guys. And honestly, David, there's not a lot to edit on an image like this, similar to the one of the fountain. because it's a great starting point. So a little color adjustment and boost, and I don't think you have a lot to work on this image. So excellent images, fantastic. I'm going to come back here. That's a great question. Did you like the speed of that edit? Because sometimes I go a lot slower and explain everything, and I feel like maybe I'm explaining too many things. Am I not explaining enough things? So let me know how many things, or am I explaining enough, right? What the adequate amount, right? Rob mentioned this when I was upside down or looking at the image upside down. What 3 things does your eye go to, right? Who wants a short clipping on tutorial of clipping on highlights and shadows? Robert said he would like that. Okay, clipping. Please add that to the spreadsheet, Rob. Video on clipping, what that means, and a little bit about the histogram, I guess. So, yeah, I could do a histogram video because that might be a great option as well. No, I've got no lack of things to create for you guys. But please, if you're on my email list, I'm going to be sending out an email tomorrow. But 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, look for our new video to be coming out. It's the secret one. So tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, watch our channel for a new video and some other things coming later this week. So until next week, doors and windows, please submit your doors and window photos for next week. Take care.